welcome. Hello. Hi, everybody. Hello to old friends. Hello to new friends. Yeah, that was very sobering listening to that, Helen. Um, and that's what's going on, of course. I mean, I've just been asked to talk a little bit about, I think, what's going on, what we think might be going on in government and how that's impacting on all of this stuff. And I'm not the only person on the call who gets a bit of an insight into that. I know Vic's here as well. Vic probably spends more time actually talking to government than I do because obviously, it's in a wide range of meetings. But I'll give you a take and let's see if Vic and others agree. So I think, generally speaking, I think the Department for Health and Social Care is kind of on our side, really, and is a force for good. You might be surprised to hear me say that. I don't know. I actually think that's true of the minister as well, Helen Whately, who, a bit like Helen was saying, Kate, I think she came into the job in February or something hideous. I don't know that she's got much background in it. She's ostensibly, quite a kind of contained person. Um, and I think she's an ex-management consultant from McKinsey. So she's a bright cookie, but she's probably quite technocratic in her outlook and in her and so for her it's been an enormous learning curve. I think it always is when you become a minister, almost always anyway, but for her, this is kind of a learning curve with knobs on. And I think as time's gone on, she's got more feel. She's for what's going on here. Obviously, normally if you've got a new minister, you trot them around to show them things, but that hasn't been possible really during the pandemic. So she's been very reliant, I think, on the conversations she's had. And I think, you know, one of the ironies about where we are is that, providers and their representatives are actually having a lot more interaction with people like Helen than they probably ever would have done before. And that's not a bad thing at all. So, and let's see what all that means for the future. The officials have all churned. I mean, one of the problems with government is just as people are getting the hang of a job, they tend to be moved on to something else. It's how the civil service works. It's how you move up. So there's a relatively new director general there whose background really lies elsewhere. I think she's doing quite well actually, and she understands how Whitehall works, which is really important. Um, and as you may or may not know, they've been recruiting many more staff into the social care division in DH. Social care has always been or struggled to find its voice in the Department of Health because you have the sort of enormous NHS dominating politically in the media and all the rest of it. But they're trying to address that, and they think they've now got something like 150 staff. I mean, one question lots of people are asking is, what are all those people doing, or what do they intend to do? I think one of the things they intend to do is to get a much better handle on what's going on in care and the economics of it in particular, so that they have a better chance of arguing with the Treasury when it comes to who gets the money. Because time and time again, what's happened is conversations between the Department of Health and the Treasury about more money for care, and just that the Treasury's just run rings around them. So there's an effort to try and level the playing field a bit, and that's all to the good. So my perspective on it is that on the whole, of course they don't get everything right. They are who they are. They've got varying degrees of understanding. They don't necessarily have emotional feel or the emotional intelligence of what it's like. I'm not clear a lot of them have ever probably been in a care home, for example. And maybe I'm doing them an injustice, but they're, as ever in the civil service, a lot of quite young people who probably don't, and it's all a bit new for them. But they're doing their best. My sense is they're good people and there's a real commitment. And one thing I can certainly say is they're working their socks off. They do work long hours. I get emails at all kinds of funny times. I'm sure Vic does too, which tells you something about how they're working. And I think they want this to work as well as it possibly can for providers. They must be worried about sustainability, about some of you guys going bust and what that would do to the system. They feel through, part of my job and my sort of organisation is to try to hold the line a bit, hold the ring a bit, and try and talk about to help them do the right thing by challenging and supporting them. And sometimes doing that publicly and sometimes doing it privately. And the guidance they're going to be producing in a few days' time is a case in point where we'll be saying some public things about it, but privately we've been trying to nudge them in the right direction as well. The problems, I think, from their point of view, one of the problems, firstly for the social care people is getting heard in DH. I'm sure Matt Hancock, who is, of course, exhausted, possibly not very well, thinking about what his next job's going to be, probably desperate to get out of this job. Couldn't really blame him. Whatever you think of him as as a human being, he's been through an incredible experience, and he probably needs to rest. And I don't think he always strikes me as a kind of sharp operator. He's quite a young man. He's got a long, he hopes, I'm sure, political career ahead of him, and probably a very, quite a distinguished one. But I think really we're more reliant probably on our Minister of State, Helen, to kind of fly the flag for social care. And it's hard if you're a Minister of State because you're not very senior. Getting hers in this government's probably not very easy. One thing they've had to juggle all the way through this, and this continual issue, is the views of Public Health England, who tend to be much more and are very powerful in all of this. And of course, we see that nationally with Chris Whitty, people like that. But actually, it kind of also impacts on them a bit lower down, where they're having conversations with some of the deputy directors and their colleagues about what's deemed to be safe and what isn't. And I don't think PHE has a good understanding of what happens in social care. And you might say, why would they? But actually, that's been a problem. I think it continues to be a problem. So they're doing their own. They've got their own internal issues to sort out. If you're in DH, trying to get agreement from those sorts of people. And then there's number 10, and that really is where the real dynamic is, I think. And because of the high profile of social care during the pandemic, which was inevitable because of the terrible toll of death and suffering and the extraordinary achievements, these are political issues. What happens about visiting or whatever is a political issue. It's a national issue. The media covers it. Therefore, number 10 has a say and ultimately makes the decision about what happens. Anything DH might come to a view, and then it's got to be signed off by number 10. Throughout most of the pandemic, they've been very cautious about visiting, I think, and very conscious that at some point someone's going to hold them to account. Really, the top decision makers for what's happened, and terrified about making it any worse through letting the virus in one form or other. All of us might say actually it's a misunderstanding of where the risks really are. But it's been difficult, I think. I'm sure the Department of Health people have worked really hard to try and get number 10 to understand these things. But it won't have been easy for them. I think as time's gone on, they're more sensitive to it. And I think, if you just want to see where the government is on all this stuff, the best thing to do is to just look, I think, in section 5 of the roadmap, if you have or haven't, which is quite a chunky bit really about social care. There's a couple of paragraphs on visiting. There's a couple of paragraphs on the state of social care more generally. And so I think they're, as time has gone on, one might very well say too little too late, but they've got more sensitive to this. They've got a bit more of a feel for what some of the issues are. And that's probably due to lots of people on this call and lots of other organisations, and also to the efforts of DH internally. So yeah, I think it's getting to be in a best place. But really, as Raina was saying right at the start, this isn't easy for anybody. It's not easy for people in government either. But I think, they're not bad people. They're trying to do their best. And, I don't blame at all people getting deeply frustrated with them, not in the least. But my job, I guess, is to support them as well as challenge them. That's what we're trying to do at Age UK.
Thank you very much, Caroline. I found that really interesting. Actually, it's to get a few sort of human glimpses, and I do often feel embarrassed by the vitriol of the language, particularly directed at the Minister for State. It's really, in human terms, it's pretty horrid. But I sort of see where it's coming from, and I hope that as a politician, she's got that sort of, Teflon thing that it is the bags under her eyes, aren't any worse than anybody else's, because I think everybody's got bags under their eyes. But I'm going to shut up for 5 minutes, and I've got my clock, because if possible, I think I'd like people now to have the chance to ask Caroline questions, because although Caroline's got to go on, I know Vic's still going to be in here, and obviously Leslie is here from Age UK, and Daisy Cooney, I think, is also here from Age UK. So even though, Caroline in body won't be here, in spirit she will be, but while she is, have we any immediate questions now while Caroline's here? Oh, I think you can wave your hand or something. I don't really know how this works. Come on, wave your hand. No? Who's that?
Hello. I mean, Caroline, I suppose in terms of what else can we be doing kind of individually as providers, because I think it's really interesting. I've said in the chat, it's nice to hear the positive intent that you feel is genuinely there from both collective central government and kind of individual people. And I think sometimes, we can all get exasperated, as you say, and irritated at some of the behaviours and the lack of understanding and awareness. And obviously we try through associations to reflect our frustrations and give solutions, but sometimes as a sector we can be better at talking about the problems than offering solutions. And I suppose that's a big purpose of today and kind of this collective, is what more can we be doing positively as individual providers or through associations to help that understanding. And because I do really think that risk sharing, I don't think there is a big lack of understanding about risk sharing in care for the independent sector, and that's not a problem just through COVID. It is a problem generally, whatever your political leaning, whatever you're feeling about independent sector making up such a lot of social care, it is, and we're here, and we can't continuously be treated as small children and kind of sent to our rooms and on the naughty step whenever anything goes wrong, when we're taking a lot of responsibility in caring for people with increasing levels of need. So I'm just interested in your feeling about, do they kind of get that risk sharing? Do they get that acknowledgement? Is there anything else we can do?
Do you want me to pick that up now, Julia? Shall I just?
Yeah.
I
want conversation.
I mean, there's a whole big elephant in the room, I think, around all of this, and I think it's happened. It was always there, but the pandemic has kind of brought it to the fore, which is what happens and what this government's view is, and what a conservative view might be of having most of your providers who are not part of the state. So the bit of government I didn't mention at all is the Treasury, which in the end, is absolutely key, because it's the one that decides where the money goes. And I'm really hostile to the Treasury around social care. I think they don't give a stuff, really. Their job, I mean, as far as they don't, I think they're ageist, and I think they're disableist, in the sense that their interest in the Treasury is about maximising the economic productivity of this country. And as far as they're concerned, older people and disabled people are largely a drain on the economy rather than a positive asset, I think. And so that translates into not wanting to spend money on social care, which it happens to health a bit as well, but even more to care. And then what makes that more complicated is that so many providers are private or non-state. And so, ideologically, the Conservatives do not want to expand the role of the state. That's absolutely classic Conservative thinking. And the Treasury doesn't want to spend any money. And so when you put those two things together and look at it, makes it very difficult to persuade this government and this Treasury to want to do the right thing. For example, standing behind, providers around insurance, which has been an issue I know that has been constantly raised throughout this whole thing. And I mean, Vic must be bored with raising it, but it comes up all the time. And it's just a really good example of an issue where, if you really thought about the best interests of people in care, you would do it. And it's but if you're so worried about expanding the role of the state, being seen to tiptoe further towards putting more public money into supporting older people and disabled people, worried about the demographics, about that sum of money always going up, that'd be the Treasury. And in you know, if you're a conservative thinking, a politician thinking about the fact that you would want, you know, got a lot of respect and time for business, but expect it to stand on its own 2 feet. You know, it's a toxic mix in this sort of situation, and helps, I think, to explain why we've seen such slow progress, which I think, you know, I suspect DHSC has been, well, I know has been arguing vigorously behind the scenes for all these things, but are constantly coming up against these other barriers.
On a light note, one of our directors' daughters has just got on a fast track civil service scheme with the Treasury, so we're like already like right, stay there, make it a success. Social care.
I think Liz White from HC1 has got her hand up. Liz, are you there?
I am, yes, thanks, Julia. Hi. I just wanted to say, Rain, very similar to you, you know, sort of with over 250 homes across the UK, we've had exactly the same challenges, and the challenges that have come more from a local level than from a government level, who I agree with Caroline have taken a very different approach and have been very receptive and have actually wanted to listen and have engaged significantly with, you know, with all at all levels around testing. But prior to Christmas, we were really excited by the lateral flow testing to be able to bring it into care homes. And I spent so much time battling with local authorities to actually get them to agree, and almost gave up at one point because it became so hard, and we had to change the government's policy to satisfy local public health teams, and it had increased testing. And, you know, here I am sitting again really excited, thinking that I'm going to be able to do essential visiting and designated visiting and really open up again. But the challenges that we're going to face are going to be trying to roll this out at a local level with councils whose anxiety is too great to allow us to do what the guidance is telling us to do. I have heard a slight difference in messaging from the government announcement about what's going to happen, and they've been really a lot clearer, I think, and I haven't heard the involvement of the local area teams yet. I feel sure it'll come in the guidance, and that's where the local teams take over and say that may be government guidance, but our guidance is no visiting, no testing, because of the position. And that's been the biggest challenge that we've had to face, to try and do the best as we can for everyone. And I hope that the messaging from the government, not just to the care providers, but has been very strong to their local authorities and public health teams about what we're all trying to achieve together. And I can see Rain nodding and Julie nodding, because Julie and I have had many conversations about this. But that has taken so much resource to get local authorities on board with what we all want, and that has been, you know, as somebody trying to lead the HC1 through this, has been my biggest challenge and the biggest barrier that I've come across.